what if the solution was nature? In a culture that is constantly chasing convenience, busyness, and the next big thing, children are spending less and less time outside, playing, and interacting with nature. We have taken childhoods of scraped knees and muddy shoes and exchanged them for childhoods of video games and controlled environments, all while losing the magic, endless opportunities, and wondrous exploration found within a childhood spent outside. The further society drifts from a childhood spent in nature, the more children become disconnected from nature, and the more the rates of depression, anxiety, and developmental challenges arise at alarming rates. Children need to spend more time in nature in order to aid in their psychological, sociological, and spiritual development. Now, to fully understand the problem at hand, one must go back to the beginning, creation. Genesis tells us that God created the heavens and the earth, created humans, and designed for us to live in the Garden of Eden in perfect harmony with creation for the rest of time. Genesis 2:8 and 15 tells us that, quote, "And the Lord God planted a garden in Eden, in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it," end quote. God created the entire earth, and he also created us. And I believe that his intention was for us to live in harmony with nature. See, it is only after the fall that the need for things like shelter and clothing arises. And then that separation between nature and mankind has only continued to grow throughout history. Now, in the United States, the average American has traded a life living in nature for one of a sterile, controlled environment. Now, of course, I'm not insinuating that all modern developments are bad. Quite the opposite, actually. Living in homes protects us from the harsh environments. School is crucial for the education of the next generation. And the development of the medical system have saved billions of lives. And yet, even so, we have started to see shocking patterns among our youth. Now, before diving deeper, I want to define a few terms, since phrases like spending time in nature are quite broad and often leave a lot up for interpretation. So real quick, I'm going to define what quantifies as nature, what counts as spending time in it, and the differences between monitored and unstructured play. First off, anytime that I mention being outside or spending time in nature, it is quite simply referring to any and all outdoor spaces. Whether it's a state park, your front yard of grass, the beach, or city park, it all counts as nature and it is all beneficial for children. Secondly, this may be obvious, but when I mention spending time outside, I am not talking about a kid sitting outside on their iPad. Yes, this still may be better than sitting inside, but it does not count. One must be engaging with nature on some level for it to count as time spent outside. I would also like to touch on the fact that although some of the studies and statistics I referenced today will have a specific age range attached to them, many do not. And when you hear me refer to children, I'm referring to anyone under the age of 18. I'd also like to note that even if you are not under 18, a lot of these statistics, principles, and facts still apply in similar and sometimes even identical ways to adults. Just because you may be an adult does not mean that this information is not relevant to your life. Lastly, you'll hear me refer to unstructured or free play a lot. And what this is, quote, any activity that is freely chosen and directed by the participants or undertaken for its own sake, not consciously pursued to achieve ends that are distinct from the activity itself, end quote. So, for example, structured outdoor play would be a teacher leading kids through exercises outside, whereas unstructured or free play would be things like playing tag, building sandcastles, and catching lizards. Unstructured play is crucial as it allows children to learn to problem solve, take calculated risk, and use their creativity. All of these skills are necessary in adult life, and they are skills that one can mostly only learn through experience, not teaching. Jonathan Haidt, in his book, The Anxious Generation, states that, quote, when parents, teachers, and coaches get involved in play, it becomes less free, less physical, and less beneficial. One of the best ways children learn and grow is by experience, and that is exactly what unstructured play allows to happen. In our modern world, children are given less and less time outside. Now, with the average child between the ages of 6 and 17 in the United States only getting 7 minutes a day in unstructured outdoor play. Not spending time in nature while the brain is developing is severely harmful to both the brain and the body, and that harm even has a name: nature deficit disorder. Richard Louv, in his book, The Last Child in the Woods, tells us that, quote, nature deficit disorder describes the human cost of alienation from nature. Among them, diminished use of sense, attention difficulties, and a higher rate of physical and emotional illnesses, end quote. We are already seeing the impact, as nearly 20% of all children and young people ages 3 through 17 in the United States have a mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral disorder. It is clear that we need to start taking action for the next generation. Spending time in nature and participating in unstructured play is crucial for children to develop properly psychologically and maintain a healthy mental state. With increased time spent inside on electronics and decreased time spent outside playing, childhood mental health is a rising problem. As established earlier, nearly 1/5 of all children and young people in the United States have a mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral disorder. And the rate at which children are prescribed antidepressants in the United States has almost doubled in the past 5 years. This is a complex problem, but one of the best, most accessible, and natural options to help is to get kids outside. Spending time in nature has been shown to reduce anxiety, depression, and behavioral conduct disorders, while increasing the child's self-worth and self-control. Getting kids outside isn't a magical solution, but it is a wonderful place to start and extremely effective. Richard Love communicates this idea precisely by writing, quote, although countless children who suffer from mental illnesses and attention disorders do benefit from medication, the use of nature as an alternative, additional, or preventative therapy is being overlooked. In fact, new evidence suggests that the need for such medications is intensified by children's disconnection from nature. End quote. Nature is free and accessible, and there's a direct connection between children spending time outside and improved mental health. The American Psychology Association found that, quote, children who lived in neighborhoods with more green space had a reduced risk of many psychiatric disorders later in life, including depression, mood disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and substance use disorders, end quote. Nature is powerful in its effect on childhood development, and the positive effects are endless. Essential social, cognitive, cultural, and life skills are learned when children spend time outside and are allowed to participate in free play. Jonathan Haidt found that, quote, unstructured free play addresses head-on, making friends, learning empathy, learning emotional regulation, learning interpersonal skills, and empowering students, end quote. Healthy brain development in children is reliant on getting the right experiences at the right age in the right order. And nature allows children to gain those skills as their brain is ready. When it comes to things of emotional development, children are known to learn best from experience, not information. And unstructured play allows them to develop these necessary skills like problem solving, social competence, safety skills, and creative thinking. Additionally, it's been found that the low level of physical risk associated with unstructured play is actually healthy for the child, as it teaches them to be careful, to take care of themselves and others, and risk assess. Lastly, it is crucial to look at how nature affects cognitive and developmental skills. Jonathan Haidt tells us that between the ages of around 9 to 14 or 15, there's a distinctly sensitive period for cultural learning. During this time is when children develop their sense of self-worth, their feelings, and their ways of interacting with friends based on the cultures that they are submersed in. Thus, during this time in development, it is crucial that children have unstructured free playtime in nature, as it helps them in learning to make friends, have empathy, emotionally regulate, use interpersonal skills, and develop their own sense of self-worth. As established earlier, children learn best from engaging and experience, not from lectures and conceptualization. And combining time in nature with unstructured play opens the doors for children to fully benefit from all that nature has to offer. Furthermore, since childhood is such a time of distinct cultural learning and development, it has been shown that individuals who took part in activities like camping, fishing, hunting, etc., before age 11 are far more likely to exhibit pro-environmental behaviors as adults. We see that Genesis 2:15 tells us that, quote, and the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it, end quote. It is clear that the Lord calls us to be stewards of the land, and the best way to teach a child to protect God's creation is to first teach them to love it. Despite all the evidence for the benefits that nature provides for children, many people still minimize its impact and even claim that it isn't accessible enough for widespread implementation. Now, while I understand where people are coming from when denying the severe importance of time in nature for children, it can often feel like there is such a long list of things that are more important for children to have for healthy development, like education, healthy eating, and social time. And while I'm in no way denying the importance of these things for the developmental aspects of children, I instead would argue that spending time in nature is just as critical and important to their development as any of the previously listed things. The truth is that there's a multitude of items that are crucial for healthy childhood development. And all that I want to communicate today is that focusing on spending time in nature should be just as much of a priority as these other more commonly recognized things. Another common argument and objection against children spending time in nature is that nature and true green spaces are not accessible enough to the average child, and thus shouldn't be a sought-after experience to the same degree. I understand and sympathize with this view, as it is completely true that depending on where you live, both geographically and then also economically, one's access to nature can vary greatly. But Summers, writing for the National Library of Medicine, tells us that, quote, nature, whether in a city park, walking in the woods, or strolling down a tree-lined street, has the capacity to help develop and restore children, and that simply playing in nature can develop cognition, independence, and team building, end quote. The benefits of nature don't only apply when you're in a national park. Even if your time outside is only able to consist of walking down your neighborhood street, it still counts. And most importantly, it still benefits you. Even just breathing fresh air and getting sun on your face has immense benefits. Now, we have explored a lot in this thesis, starting with the biblical account of creation and how God created us with the intent to live in harmony with nature, and then how children are getting little to no playtime outside and how that negatively impacts their development. Then we went on to cover the details of how spending time playing in nature positively impacts the child, and all of the psychological, sociological, and even spiritual benefits a child gains from that time spent in the outdoors. Next, we went on to detail how childhood is clearly such a crucial time for development, which is part of why spending time in nature is essential for this stage of life. The truth is, this topic of how nature affects childhood psychological, sociological, and spiritual development goes much deeper than the surface of what I was able to cover today. Generation Alpha, children born between 2010 and 2024, were the first ever generation to be born into a world in which smartphones existed. One of the main reasons that children are not spending time outside is because they are spending that time inside, on phones, gaming consoles, and TVs. The data we have regarding the effects of a lack of time spent in nature is truly only the tip of the iceberg, and especially with these new generations like Gen Alpha and Gen Z, the effects of a childhood spent inside have yet to be fully seen and understood. One of the underlying problems in this is that as a society, we are exchanging the true, authentic, natural, and life-filled world for a fake one on screens. No piece of technology, no matter how far advanced, will ever compare to the tangible, created by God, real, life-filled creation that is the outdoors. We must not allow ourselves and our children to get to a place where we value comfort, convenience, and entertainment over what is real, true, and living. We've exchanged handwriting for typing, love letters for abbreviated text, fellowship for scrolling on social media, our pen and Bible for an app, and community for entertainment on screens. And now we are allowing our children to exchange a childhood full of wonder, shaped by experience and emotion, and connection with God, for a synthetic childhood spent on a sterile screen. Now, what does this mean for you as either a parent, teen, or adult in your daily life? It means being intentional. Nothing will change if nothing changes. So put away the phone, turn off the TV, and get outside. If you're an adult or teen, go for a walk, lay out in the sun, play pickleball with friends, or have a picnic with your family. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to look like going on a hike or camping. Sometimes it's as simple as reading a book on the porch in the sun. And if you're a parent, take away and limit screens. And make getting outside just as mandatory as homework. As a fellow child, almost adult, I can promise you that your children, once grown, will not thank you for endless screen time, but they will thank you for getting them outside and giving them a childhood full of wonder, freedom, and growth. So encourage your kids to go outside, to get messy, to take risk, and to be creative. The scraped knee can be bandaged, the homework can be done later, and the muddy shoes can be washed. But you cannot get back the resilience, confidence, and emotional growth lost within a childhood disconnected from nature. So do not allow screens to steal anything else from you. Take back control, get outside, and take notice of how it changes you for the better.